So today we are out in the field building low tunnels or caterpillar tunnels over some beds. This is something we do annually to kind of help certain plants and certain crops push early so that we get blooms a little bit before other field plants do. Kind of helps us to spread out the bloom time and get us some early crops. We use a Johnny's bender for these tunnels. So if you were on the Johnny's website, it would say low tunnel bender. And we use 10-foot conduit. So I'm going to show you what that looks like, kind of set up, and then give you a few modifications that we have discovered over the years, kind of in honing in on what our design looks like, that we find work really well for us on our farm. Thought I'd share them with you. Hopefully they will help you as well. So with these tunnels, we use 10-foot wide plastic. So I have my plastic laid out the whole length of this hoop, which is going to be 100-foot long. The roll that I got was a 100-foot roll, but they usually have 5 feet extra, so on each end, so 10 extra feet, which is what we're going to use to make our end walls, which we'll get to in just a moment. With these, I have my hoops set 5 feet apart, so that's our distance between hoops. We don't get a ton of snow load and we don't get a ton of wind, so that distance is good for us. If you were someplace that got a lot of snow load or a lot of wind, you may want to make them a little bit closer. One last thing with the plastic is that when I lay it down, I'm pretty conscientious, and you'll want to be too, to make sure that whatever side I have laying down on the ground that might be getting dirty, I make sure that that goes on the outside when I pull it over, so all that dirt will rinse off and not get stuck underneath. Just a tiny detail, but it helps me to remember at the beginning. So let me show you the end hoops. These each have, so on each end they're the same, but on the end hoop we use Tex screws to screw in this channel, which is a wiggle wire channel, and then this is the wiggle wire. So we'll use this to anchor the plastic into this last hoop on either end. You'll also see I have a T-post set behind the hoop, so on the inside, what'll be the inside of the tunnel, to help anchor it. I have one of these at each end, and then I have one in the middle as well. If you're in an area where you have a lot of wind, you may want to have more of that support, but they are drilled through that end hoop to help anchor it. And then each of the hoops are sunk into the ground 6 inches on either side. So each of the hoops is sunk in, and then we connect these brackets to them. So we take this bracket and sit it flush with the post and with the ground, and screw it into the post so that it's anchored into the post, and then use these 6-inch weed mat pins to pin it into the ground so it stays put. You'll also see I have a carabiner, just a little carabiner on here. This is going to be important in just a little while when we put the ropes on, but that's something that also goes onto this bracket. And these are brackets that you can get at any home improvement store or hardware store. And the weed mat pins we buy from a grower's nursery supply store, but you could use any kind of pin like that. At this point, I am ready to anchor down my end, so I'm going to use my wiggle wire to do that. I have the plastic pulled out and set. I have about 5 feet extra here at the end that we're going to utilize for the end wall. I'm going to start at the top of my bow, because as I use my wiggle wire, it will expand out both sides. So to use my wiggle wire, I just push down and get it locked into the channel, and then using my thumb, I'm going to push it down and underneath the wiggle wire channel on that side, and then alternate back and forth to get it secured under there. So there are a few different ways you can do the end plastic on these tunnels. If you are on a lot of websites, you'll see where people gather them and pull them tight and kind of make this like little cone and anchor the plastic out, which is a totally reasonable way to do it. We do it differently, and I'll tell you why. One is that it creates a lot of extra stuff out in the space, and it makes it a tripping hazard, and it doesn't function within our bed lengths as well. And the second reason is because when we vent them in the spring, when it gets kind of warms up in them and we want to be able to vent them more easily, it's more of a challenge when they're like that. So this is what we do instead, is we take the extra plastic that we talked about, kind of fold it down in, kind of like you're folding a present, and then I'm going to wrap it around the side and get it nice and snug. So I've got it tight, and then I'm going to use the wiggle wire to anchor both the original plastic that's on the hoop and this end wall plastic, which can get a little bit tough because that's extra layers of plastic in the wiggle wire, but it is doable, and you just kind of roll all the way down and you've got yourself an end wall. Now I'm at the other end and I've pulled the plastic tight, not super tight, but tight enough that I can get this wiggle wire anchored in. I'll do the end wall and then we'll work on the ropes. We're going to use a rope to fasten down the plastic. So I have it looped and hooked down in that carabiner down below. And what we'll do now is I'll take this rope and I'll essentially throw it over the hoop to the carabiner on the next hoop, other side. And so Erin is going to help me with this. We're going to show you how we do it. Then once that is hooked, we'll flip it back over to the third loop on this side and hook it. And we'll go down the whole row that way. And then we'll use another roll of rope on the other side to do the opposite. So we have a crisscross pattern. And that way if one of our ropes breaks or gets loosened, we still have a backup that will hold the plastic on. Now that we've got the ropes tied off at the ends, secured to the clips at the bottom, the last step is just to go through and kind of pull any slack that we have left in them out, which is just a matter of coming to one side, easier done with 2 people. Come to the side where you're anchored, pull it tight, and then pull the slack out on the other one. And then you'll go to the next rung and do the same thing. Repeat the process to the end, and then you can tie it off to make sure you have the tightest, tautest tunnel in town. All right. Hopefully you found some nuggets in there that would help you if you are interested in building low tunnels like this. They're a great option for season extension. I hope that you will check back in. I'm going to show a little bit of what we have under these tunnels in a different video and keep you posted on everything that we see coming out of them. Thanks for swinging by the farm. See you next time.